Rise and grind. Welcome back to Sales Remastered. I'm your host, Daniel. And in this episode, I'm going to share a direct message that I received from one of my followers. His name's Manny. Shout out to you, Manny. Thank you very much for following. Manny is one of the loyal followers that follows me on pretty much most platforms, which is Facebook, Instagram, as well as Facebook. And he sent me a direct message on my Facebook channel asking me to cover some information on resistance. And he shared in his message to me that he works in a high-paced environment. So he receives about 10 leads a day, and it's tough just to make at least one sale. His average call takes about 30 to 45 minutes just to get to the pitch, and then a lot of times he's just meeting with resistance at the very end. So he feels that he's doing a great job. He feels that he's hitting all the key points, all the leverage factors. He's explaining the benefits, and he outlined in the email that even though he feels like he's doing everything right, at the very end, he's met with resistance like oh, I need to talk to my wife, or okay, well, we need to shop more, we need to go look around some more and compare. And I think anyone in sales can relate with that. So Before I explain my answer to Manny, what I want to do is explain the logic and the reason behind it. Now, as most of you already know, those that have followed me at least, that I grew up in Los Angeles County, and I currently reside in Orange County. I'm in California, and throughout my upbringing, throughout my childhood, I was not raised by my parents. My mom passed away when I was young. My dad, he chose to, I was the youngest of, I want to say, about 10 kids. My dad had about 7 wives. My mom was his 6th wife, and my mom passed when I was about 1.5 years. So he chose to continue living his life and more or less spending time with his other kids, and chose to leave me with my mom's brother and his family. And I'm grateful that they took me in, because that is, talk about yin and yang, that my mom's side of the family is the good, and my dad's side of the family is where I met most of the resistance. But anyway, besides that, there's other videos on that. In this, before I explain my response to Manny, what I want to do is I want to share with you why I gave this answer and why I have experience as to why this works. Through my upbringing, because I was technically passed around like a blunt, I was passed by, to house to house. The one who I resided with most was my mom's brother, but I did have a fair share of time going from household to household. And anytime I wasn't on my mom's side, I was on my dad's side. I was moving with my cousins, my uncle, my brothers, my sister. I was just moving around, and each and every single time, I was always reminded that I could be kicked out. So imagine, you're a young kid, you shouldn't be worried about where you're gonna live next, where you're going to sleep next. Psychologically, it's fucking damaging knowing that your dad is actually right around the corner from you, but you're sweating where you're gonna live. So needless to say, as I was coming up as a kid, I naturally got in trouble, and each and every single time I got in trouble, I would get threatened with getting kicked out, or being kicked out on the street with all my belongings in a trash bag, or I'd have to go live with another family member, or worse yet, I had to go live with my dad, who had at the time a wife, and my stepmom was just an evil bitch, just stupid evil. As an adult, I look back and I'm like, dude, anyway, not to dwell on it, to move on. Of course, I didn't want to be threatened to be kicked out. So being in trouble often at school, I would get phone calls home, or I'd get notes that I have to bring home. This is way before, emails were popular. And usually I'd have to bring a note home to get it, to get signed by an adult and bring it back. It's called the pink slip. And in some cases, I'd even get a phone call home, or some cases the neighbors would give a phone call to whoever I was living with, because I did something to the neighbors' kids. I was a real knucklehead. But in the process of getting in trouble, I actually learned how to overcome resistance. And because the main threat that I experienced was, you're gonna get kicked out, or go move with your dad and his evil wife. I feared that. I didn't want that. It's much similar to an objection right now of saying, oh no, you know what, I'm okay. No, I'm gonna go and talk to my wife, or I'm gonna think about it, or no thank you. Those are what we dread, because we spend time, we go through the whole rigorous pitch and scripting, and when we nail each and every product, and even though we feel like we're explaining the sky's blue, we still sometimes get that objection. And so, growing up as a kid, going through that kind of punishment, on my way home or en route, I'd immediately have to think on my toes of how I can justify the reason why I got in trouble so I wouldn't get kicked out. And believe me, as a kid, you get very creative. And so that's what I did. I already knew, because every single time I got the same threat: you're gonna get kicked out. You're gonna get kicked out. Why are you living here? I'm not even your parents. You're not my responsibility. I don't want you here. These are the things that I heard, and I hated it. I dreaded it. It killed me inside. And I think it technically feels the same in sales. You go through it so many times, it kills us inside. It kind of kills our momentum. And so my reasoning behind this is that every time you go through an objection, or every time you go through that, that judgment or that answer, you already know that there's a chance for that same answer to come. And so my response to Manny was that, how do I overcome the resistance? Simple. I simply learned to love it. I learned to invite the resistance. Not necessarily love it, like I'm writing it love letters, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about learn to invite it, learn to accept it, if that makes sense. Know that it's gonna come. And if it doesn't come, then hey, you did your job great and you're getting better. But most of the time it's gonna come, right? And so, for example, in Manny's situation, I shared with him, if you're always getting an objection stating that, I gotta talk to my wife, and he finds that a lot of the times he's losing sales because simply, the wife was not there, the husband was not there, the spouse was not there, the actual decision maker was not there, then I think it's important for him to keep that in mind at the very beginning of the call. And so now, as he goes through his 30 to 45 minute pitch, he explained to me that it takes that long. I told him, keep that in mind at the very beginning. Know that objection is going to come, and know that objection is common. And I told him to actually jot down the common objections. I told him to not only jot it down, but pay attention to when in the sequence, or when in his sales conversation it happens, because it could be him who's actually inviting that objection. And so in the case of, I need to speak with my wife, or I need to speak with my husband or spouse, I told him, if you consider that right from the very beginning, you're able to revise your script, revise your wordplay, start dropping hints, or not hints, but trying to extract clues if whether or not there's another decision maker. And so, for example, maybe make an assumption and say, when will you and the other decision maker be available? Or when will you and the decision makers, or when will the decision makers be available? And I personally didn't like that, because I'm already kind of, again, I'm planting a seed and putting a guard on my prospect. It's my wordplay that I believe is going to properly set up the prospect. And so if I ask the prospect, when are the decision makers going to be available, I'm already putting my prospect on defense, because now he's going to guard himself and say, oh, well, what decision do we need to make? Oh, you know what? No, we're okay. They feel like they're being tied, even though they're not. And I think every prospect has an illusion that if they say yeah, they're just committed and everything is written in stone. And we have to understand that. We have to perceive that. And so I told Manny, I said, if that's a common trait, if that's a common experience, then don't go over any numbers until, any numbers meaning any of the details of the terms, or the price, or the rate, or the incentives or the packages, until he does two things. Number one is that he understands truly what the solution is that his prospects are looking for. And so, for example, he works in a financial industry, so he shared with me that the common objective of his prospects is to save money. and that was it. And so no, and so I told him to go a little bit further into detail on that. Granted, they all want to save money, so it's easy to assume that everyone that calls say, hey, I need to save some money. And so if we actually dug a little deeper and said, okay, great, with that savings, if I were to help you create some savings, what would you do with it? Is a very simple question. The wordplay is very strong because it's going to extract the information you need at the sale. It's going to extract the information you need for when both the decision makers are on the phone. And you're not necessarily going to, extract information and boom, jump right into benefits. No, you have to stack those benefits. You have to stack the result. You have to collect notes on the results that the prospect is looking for, so that when you explain how your product or service is the vehicle that they will use to take them to the results or bring them the results that they need, then you can word it in a way that they'll understand. And so if they were looking to save some money to pay off some debt, then you can ask them and say, well, once I help you create the savings, I've now freed up some extra cash flow so you can double up on the payments to pay down your debts, and you can pay off your debts faster. You mentioned that you pay $200 on the debt now. I can help you save $100, and now you're spending $300 on the debt. More importantly is that I can help you pay this off sooner and thus save you $300 per month. Not only that, but I can help you improve your FICO score and also help you increase the amount of cash flow you have in the household, so that you have the option and the flexibility to spend more towards yourself, or invest towards your retirement, or put inside the bank to replenish the monies that were lost by paying down the high credit card debt. And so, by wording it that way, it's a little bit more tailored, it's a little bit more applicable. But if you don't have both decision makers on the phone, you're taking too much risk of leaving up to that objection, like, oh, you know what, I need to talk to my wife, or oh, I need to think about it. So my response to Manny was, in short, is that in order to overcome resistance, he has to learn to accept it and appreciate it. Appreciate it, that it's part of the process. Appreciate that it's the grind of sales. If sales wasn't a grind, I think anyone and everyone would be in sales, because you simply don't need, you don't need a doctorate degree. You don't need, you don't need a bachelor degree. You don't need a high school diploma. I'm living proof. I'm living proof of that. And they don't care about your background. They don't care about what you did. I mean, to be honest with you, in sales, they don't even drug test. Well, majority of them don't. And you have to think about it. It's like, well, all right, just because sales, especially in like a call center, it's its own beast. It's its own animal. Now, granted, just because they don't, this is a disclaimer. Just because they don't drug test doesn't mean that you go and get high at work. Don't do that. It'll fuck up your money. Be straight, get your mind right, get your paper right, get your goals right, and more importantly, send me a DM. Let me know how I can help you, like I helped Manny. Whether you found Sales Remastered on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or SalesRemastered.com, when you went to go and download that script, then I think that you have an opportunity to not only pick the mind or pick the brain of a hustler, but also really get a glimpse on all the years of experience that I bring to the table. And what's funny, you want to know some fun fact? I'm staring at this button. The lens isn't even there. I'm looking at some on my phone, and this entire time in the video, you're probably going to see me staring. It's like, what is he looking at? There you are. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you looking at my flaws. I appreciate you, accepting the background in my car and me not looking in the camera for 8 minutes, that awkwardness. And I appreciate the follow. I appreciate you, Manny, for sending me the question on my direct message, and all the kind words for the motivational memes on Instagram, as well as the sales blogs and motivational blogs I put not only on Facebook, but also LinkedIn. So if you ever want to check me out, all you got to do is go into a Google bar and just search hashtag SalesRemastered. You're going to see every platform that I'm on. You're going to see the most recent post, as well as tie it to myself on my own LinkedIn channel. So I hope this information helps you like it's helped Manny, and please share, subscribe, and follow. I'll see you later.